Welcome to Nationalize. Please subscribe and hit the bell icon for more breaking updates. Good evening. Tonight, we bring you a story that is already making waves across the nation and beyond. In a time when the country often feels divided, the Supreme Court has delivered a message of rare unity. Tonight, we witness the aftermath of a rare unanimous Supreme Court decision, 9 justices, 1 voice, on a case that strikes at the core of American identity, the right to bear arms and the question of legal liability. This is not just another legal battle, it's a moment that touches on the very fabric of American law and values, raising questions about responsibility, sovereignty, and the reach of justice. In Smith & Wesson, Brands versus Mexico, the court delivered a landmark ruling. A foreign nation cannot sue American gun manufacturers for crimes committed within its own borders. The case began when Mexico sought to hold U.S. gun makers accountable for weapons used in crimes across the border, arguing that their practices contributed to violence and instability. But the justices, after months of deliberation, drew a firm line. This decision reinforces a controversial federal law, the Protection of Lawful Commerce in Arms Act, drawing a clear boundary around American legal responsibility. The ruling not only upholds the law but also sends a message about the limits of U.S. courts and international disputes, and the protection granted to American industries. What's remarkable is the unity, liberal and conservative justices alike agreed, transcending politics. In an era of deep ideological divides, the court's consensus stands out, reminding us that some principles are seen as fundamental, regardless of political leanings. Justice Elena Kagan authored the opinion, joined by her most conservative colleagues, signaling that the law, at times, rises above ideology. Her words emphasized the importance of legal precedent and the careful balance between national sovereignty and international accountability. Tonight, we break down what this means for you, the country and the world, exploring the history, the case, and the far-reaching consequences. We'll look at how this decision could shape future lawsuits, international relations, and the ongoing debate over gun rights and responsibilities. Stay with us as we unpack the story behind the headlines. To grasp the Supreme Court's decision, we must revisit the origins of the Second Amendment. Ratified in 1791, its 27 words have fueled centuries of debate. Does it protect state militias or individual gun ownership? For years, courts focused on militias, but in 2008's District of Columbia vs. Heller, the Supreme Court affirmed an individual's right to possess firearms for lawful purposes, like self-defense. Yet the right isn't unlimited. Restrictions on felons, the mentally ill, and sensitive places remain constitutional. Frustrated by legislative inaction, gun control advocates turned to lawsuits against manufacturers, prompting Congress to pass the Protection of Lawful Commerce in Arms Act, PLCAA, in 2005, granting broad immunity to the industry. This law is now at the heart of the Supreme Court's latest unanimous ruling. While the case focused on the Second Amendment, its implications touch the Fourth, protecting citizens from unreasonable searches and seizures. The Fourth Amendment, born from colonial resistance to British abuses, ensures privacy and limits government power. Over time, courts have adapted its protections to new technologies, balancing law enforcement needs with individual rights. In Smith & Wesson, Mexico's lawsuit sought to extend U.S. legal responsibility beyond its borders, raising questions about sovereignty and the reach of American law. The Supreme Court's ruling reinforces boundaries, preventing foreign governments from using U.S. courts to regulate American companies for actions abroad. By upholding the PLCAA, the court maintains a crucial limit on legal overreach. The decision protects not just gun makers, but the principle that American law stops at the border. The case began in 2021, when the Mexican government filed a groundbreaking lawsuit against several major U.S. gun manufacturers, including Smith & Wesson, seeking $10 billion in damages. Mexico alleged that these companies' business practices, ranging from how they design, market, and distribute firearms, directly contributed to the rampant cartel violence devastating communities across the border. The lawsuit argued that LAC's oversight and aggressive marketing made it easy for traffickers to funnel American guns into Mexico, fueling a crisis that has claimed thousands of lives and destabilized entire regions. Mexico's legal team contended that the manufacturers' marketing and distribution strategies were not just negligent, but actively enabled illegal gun trafficking. They claimed the companies turned a blind eye to obvious warning signs, making them complicit in the violence. The lawsuit highlighted how certain firearms were even advertised in ways that appealed to criminal organizations, and how weak controls allowed guns to cross the border with alarming ease. At the heart of the legal battle was the Protection of Lawful Commerce in Arms Act, or PLCAA. This U.S. law generally shields gun manufacturers from being held liable when their products are used in crimes, except in rare circumstances where companies themselves break the law or act with gross negligence. Mexico argued that its lawsuit fit within these narrow exceptions, specifically pointing to claims of public nuisance and negligent entrustment. They asserted that the manufacturer's actions created a foreseeable risk of harm, and that the companies should be held accountable for the consequences. The lower courts were divided. A U.S. district court initially dismissed the case, ruling that the PLCAA protected the gun makers. However, the appeals court revived the lawsuit, finding that Mexico's claims might fall within the law's exceptions and deserved further consideration. This legal split set the stage for a high-stakes review by the U.S. Supreme Court, drawing international attention and raising questions about the reach of American law. The justices agreed to hear the case, focusing on a pivotal question: do the PLCAA's protections extend to lawsuits brought by foreign governments for harms that occur outside the United States? The answer would have far-reaching implications for international law and gun policy. In the end, the Supreme Court delivered a unanimous and unequivocal decision. The PLCAA's protections do apply, effectively shielding U.S. gun manufacturers from Mexico's claims and closing the door on similar lawsuits from foreign governments. Justice Elena Kagan's opinion was a study in judicial restraint. She focused on the PLCAA's plain language: manufacturers can't be sued for crimes committed by others with their products. Allowing Mexico's lawsuit, she wrote, would undermine Congress's intent and rewrite the law from the bench. Kagan clarified that only violations of specific firearms statutes, not broad public nuisance claims, qualify as exceptions. Justices Thomas and Jackson concurred, emphasizing the ruling's consistency with the Constitution and Congress's power to amend the law. The message: the court interprets the law as written. Policy changes belong to Congress. The political debate, not the legal one, continues. The Supreme Court's ruling marks a pivotal moment for the firearms industry, sending shockwaves through both political and economic spheres across the country. For gun manufacturers, this decision is more than just a legal win. It's a powerful affirmation of their position in the American marketplace and legal system. By solidifying the PLCAA's shield, the court has effectively ended the looming threat of massive liability lawsuits that could have crippled the industry. In the immediate aftermath, gun company stocks surged dramatically, reflecting renewed investor confidence and a sense of stability for the sector. Manufacturers now enjoy a new level of financial certainty, allowing them to plan for the future without the constant fear of costly litigation. Gun rights advocates across the nation celebrated the decision, viewing it as a major victory for their cause. Many called it a crucial win for the Second Amendment, arguing that it protects not just individual rights, but also the businesses that support those rights. On the other side, gun control supporters expressed deep frustration, calling the decision a blow against lawfare, the use of lawsuits to hold gun makers accountable. With the courts now closed to their efforts, these advocates are turning their attention to Congress. They argue that the PLCAA gives unjust and unique protection to one industry, shielding it from accountability in ways that no other sector enjoys. This has sparked renewed calls for legislative change. As a result, the debate is shifting from the courts to the legislature, where the future of gun policy will be fiercely contested. Activists on both sides are mobilizing, ramping up grassroots campaigns and community outreach to influence lawmakers and public opinion. The ruling places the responsibility for gun violence squarely on individuals rather than manufacturers, a shift that will shape policy discussions for years to come. With lawsuits against gun makers now largely off the table, the legal landscape has fundamentally changed. This means the focus will intensify on legislative solutions, such as expanding background checks, enacting red flag laws, and investing in community-based gun safety programs. The court's decision doesn't end the national conversation about gun violence and accountability. Instead, it redirects the debate to the public square and the halls of government. Citizens, activists, and lawmakers alike are now grappling with what comes next, as the issue becomes even more prominent in public discourse. One thing is clear: the fight over gun policy in America is far from over, and the next chapter will be written not in the courts, but in the hearts, minds, and voices of the people. Legal experts say the court's unanimity is the story. Walter Olson of the Cato Institute notes, "This was about statutory interpretation, not ideology. The ruling provides stability for the firearms industry and respects the separation of powers, leaving policy questions to Congress. Gun control advocates acknowledge the path through the courts is closed. Change must come legislatively." International law experts warn that allowing foreign governments to sue U.S. companies for harms abroad would set a dangerous precedent. The court drew a line. American laws apply at home, not as tools for global litigation. The message is clear. Congress, not the courts, must decide if the PLCAA stands. The next move belongs to lawmakers and the public. The Smith & Wesson case echoes in other areas of constitutional law, especially the First Amendment. In 2024, the court unanimously ruled in NRA versus Vullo that government officials can't pressure private companies to punish disfavored speech. Both cases show the court's skepticism of indirect government overreach, whether through litigation or regulatory pressure. The justices reinforced that only Congress can impose liability or restrictions, not creative legal strategies or backdoor coercion. These decisions protect not just gun rights, but all Americans from government attempts to sidestep constitutional limits. The court's unity signals a strong defense of fundamental freedoms, regardless of politics. The Supreme Court's unanimous decision settles a major legal question, but not the national debate. Gun rights supporters will defend the PLCAA in Congress. Gun control advocates will push for its repeal. The fight moves from the courtroom to the campaign trail and legislative halls. The ruling is a reminder. The judiciary interprets the law, but Congress writes it. Any change must come through democratic action, not lawsuits. The court has handed responsibility back to the people and their representatives. The story of gun rights and regulation in America continues. Its next chapter will be written by Congress and the public. Thank you for watching.